Yeah, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, then I would say let's kick off the official part. Welcome to this edition of the Leadership Café. I'm really excited. So many people joined, and as you know, we also record it because some people are still sleeping or have other meetings at this time, and they will watch it later. It's pretty impressed how big this round has already grown. For those who joined the first time, Leadership Cafe is actually based on the Viennese coffee house culture, where not only warm drinks are being actually consumed, but also it has been always been a place to exchange thoughts and ideas, and that's what we're doing here in this coffee house 4.0. So we use this opportunity that this crisis gives us to meet actually across all countries and around the world to connect about the topics of leadership. Today, our focus point is around compassion. Compassion, I must say, is very interesting because it's one of the few words that I like in English more than in German. Because compassion really expresses much more than it's about doing things together with a passion. And we have a great guest today here, bringing that in from his leadership experience. As you know, we always have special guests that actually have this experience from their leadership career and give us an inspiration how to share this and how to actually highlight this aspect of leadership. So I hand over to my colleague, Claudia, who has been working with Alex Bodmann in the last couple of months intensively for an interesting chat around leadership and compassion and what these two have to do with each other. Claudia.
Okay, cool. So welcome, Alex. Maybe Alex, say hi or say something that everybody knows.
Hi,
who's the
hi,
one.
hi to everybody.
That's Alex. Alex is head of or a director, or I don't know what the title is, CEO of Caritas Vienna. And Caritas is an international organization most of you probably know, and they're known for providing support to people in social and financial needs. They do care, they do provide housing, they provide food, whatever. But what many of us don't know is that Caritas actually is to provide these services, you need a huge organization. So just Caritas Vienna alone, and Alex, you correct me on the figures, I just want to put it in dimensions, has around 5,000 employees. It's a quite big company in terms of turnover, and you can call it company or organization. Some of us have a company background. And Caritas is not only providing services, and the Caritas Vienna is very innovative. They do also quite some other stuff. So who would have thought they are managing hotels? They are providing school services. They are, I think, the largest care provider in Austria. They invest in startups, which is quite interesting sometimes. And yeah, they do a lot of things that are innovative. And Alex is heading up this team in Vienna with a colleague. And yeah, welcome, Alex, here on our Leadership Cafe. The topic today is leadership and compassion. And you would think compassion and Caritas goes well together. So my first question to you would be, what brought you there? What do you like about your job? How do you bring in compassion? And what are maybe some challenges you're currently facing?
That was not only one question, that's more than one question.
3, but I will follow up on them.
Yes, what brought me here? I was doing my civil service in Caritas. So in Austria, there you have either military service or you can choose civil service. So I had the civil service for 1 year after my studies at the Vienna University for Economics, and then I stayed here. I started in the office for controlling, and then I led a home for disabled children, and then I was responsible for home care, and so on and so on. And for the last 12 years, I'm the Secretary General or Managing Director, or there are a lot of titles on that. So I'm head of Caritas Vienna, and I'm still here. So I have a lot of compassion, that's true, for this organization or for the work of this organization, and I'm still very, very engaged to bring this organization to the people, to bring people together. Claudia mentioned it. In Austria, we have more than 16,000 employees, and in Caritas Vienna, we have more than 5,000 employees. But more of that, we have more than 50,000 volunteers. And we have more than 100,000 children and youth who are running or doing some kind of things for our work for Caritas. So there are a lot of engaged, a lot of compassionate people who are working with and for Caritas and for the people in need, for the people who need care, people who are disabled, people who need help in any way. And we are very broad, as you can hear. So we have a hotel for refugees, and it's not, they don't live there, they work there. So in this hotel, it's called Magdas, or in English you would say like it. So I like it very much. It's a hotel where the employees are refugees, and where you can, as in any other hotel with a social Mehrwert, how would you say it in English, with a social plus?
Social value add plus, social plus.
Value added, yeah. Yeah. So that's just one example what we are doing, and what we also try to do is to invest as much as possible in innovation, and therefore we also support somehow startups, or we're working together with startups, as Claudia knows even more about it than I know. Yeah.
Oh, so that's a quite broad field. If you would have to nail it, what's the thing that motivates you most on your job?
At the end, it's always the direct help to the people. So if I open up a new nursing home, or if I open up a new place where homeless people can stay, or if I open up a new hotel, or any sort of institution, or also mobile help, if I can see or feel how people can profit out of it, or can being helped, so then I think that's the compassion I'm having. So if you come in contact with the direct work, then you know every day on why you're doing it. And I think my work is in my daily work is very comparable to many management jobs. So I think it's not very different of what I'm doing, but I think the difference is for what, or for the reason I'm doing it.
Thank you. And maybe there's also a difference in how you do it. It's about leadership in this cafe, and it's about compassionate leadership. And I have to admit, I did a bit of interviewing your colleagues about your biggest leadership strengths, more or less. And all of them mentioned that you are really good at trusting in people and enabling people to do things, but still knowing what everybody's doing. So you keep the oversight of what's going on, but you give a lot of, or you allow a lot of freedom in your team. Can you tell us a bit about your leadership style?
Yeah, you better ask others about your own leadership style, but thank you for that. Yes, it's not that easy as it sounds. Yes, trusting people and giving them the chance to do what they can do best, and the other hand, holding the whole organization together. I think that's one of the biggest challenges, because you have to be very individual on the one way, so that where every person you are leading, you have to coach individually, and at the other hand, you have to standardize your whole organization, and you're always in this Spannungsfeld. It's
tension.
Yeah, in this tension on leading individually, and give freedom and give trust to one person and the strengths of that one person, and then the other hand, you have to be fair and equal to everybody, and you have to decide. So what is the more important thing right now? Giving the freedom, or say now this we have to standardize.
Did this also have an impact on your way of working? I came across 1 or 2 meetings where you practice sociocratic. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's in our management team. It's we are 10 people together, so 8. So we are 2 managing directors and 8 leading, how do you say, managing persons. We are using sociocracy in deciding several things. That means that the consent method, you can say, we are using this method to decide things. That means that everybody can say his opinion, but it's in a round. So everybody can say something, but you don't have a discussion. But you're going in the round and round, and at the end, everybody can say, okay, I'm okay with this decision, or I'm more or less okay, but I have second thoughts, or I'm against the decision. But if you're against one decision, you're responsible to bring in a new possible method of a new idea on how to solve the problem. So you cannot say I'm against it and okay, go and please bring me another idea on how to solve the problem. But then you're responsible by yourself to bring in a new idea on how to solve the problem or the situation.
It's a quite modern concept, let's put it like that, and a quite egalitarian concept.
We have been doing it only 2 or 3 years now, and we are experiencing and trying out every meeting new things on how to come to decisions. But it's a very structured method, so it's not very how do you say, very creative.
Agile.
Maybe it's not a very creative situation, but it's a very structured one to come very fast to decisions. And for these meetings you need preparation, and we do this preparation every month in a very creative way. We are meeting the whole day. Now we are meeting a whole day in Zoom, which is quite unnerving, I would say. But normally we would meet in the hotel, for example, sitting together, and everybody who has a good idea just sits together and bring in and prepares the other meeting, which is very structured and where the decisions are being taken. So I think we have 2 situations or 2 forms on how we do these meetings. Yeah. A very creative one where 2 or 3 or 4 people are going to prepare something, and then in the management team we decide things in a very structured way.
How does this impact your way of working together? So did you grew closer by that, or
yes.
Were there any changes compared to before?
Yes, there is more the people are more responsible for the decisions which are being taken, and I think we also the people go more openly and more compassionate in the meetings. Yeah, the meetings, they always say, okay, it was a very good meeting this day. And when I think in former times, 3 or 4 years ago, they always said, okay, why are we doing this meeting? There are not a really decision taken. It was not prepared well. Who is taking the decision in the meeting? Is it me or you, or are we doing it together? And now yesterday we had our management team, and we have the Menti meter, you know this, menti.com, where you can go from 0 to 10 if you're satisfied with the meeting. And I think it was 8.6 or 8.7. So everybody was very satisfied on how the meeting went. And I think 3 years ago we would have 3 or 4 or 5 like that.
So it's something you would recommend people to look into?
Yes, but the most important thing is that you have to find your own version, and that you have to that you have to try out things. We did try out, and we are going to try out many decision-taking things. It's not the only way to take the decision on which one I described, but there are other methods. So the Widerstandsmethode, I don't know the English words for that.
Now, Peter, you have to come in. I don't even know. So.
The resistance methods, I don't know.
Resistance, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So if there is a decision provided, and then you can prove if everybody or how strong is how do you say resistance? How strong is the resistance to that decision? Or if it's low, then you can say, okay, everybody's fine with it. But if it's very hard, so then you discuss again. And so we are trying out different methods on decision taking on the different situations of decisions you are needing in the company.
Okay, Michi put, for all of you interested, I think a link to Sociocratic in the comments. So if you want to read that, I think it's interesting. And also something that you said, trying out, is something that I feel every time I get in touch with Caritas, you are quite visionary and bold organization, and probably this comes out of your team working together closely. What was the boldest move you did in your career?
Boldest move.
And was there any time you were scared, or were there moves that scared you?
Wow. I think the boldest move was the Magdas Hotel, which is also in the chat I have seen. So look at the homepage. It's closed now because of our lockdown in Austria. But to start up a hotel, which takes a lot of investment, and which is not very clear if you are successful, because before we never did, never had a hotel, so we had to understand on how to manage hotels, and that with a really big challenge with people from, I think, 17 countries who are not very professional at the first hand in doing a hotel, or in working in a hotel. So it was a really big challenge, and I don't think that I was really scared, as I see, because I was very enthusiastic, but it was a very bold move. And it was also a very bold move to invest in our company, Claudia. It's still a bold move, as you can, if you get the feedbacks from others, and if they listen to the figures, maybe they are small in the company world, but they are big in the social network.
Okay.
So that you invest in a company.
For those of you who don't know, we are doing a startup. We are social business and doing a startup together with Caritas on digital fundraising, and we just started a few weeks ago, so we're all quite excited. And that was also quite a bold move from a traditional social organization, I have to say, and we were very positively surprised that Caritas dared to go in there. So this is also something where you can see the boldness. Why I asked you for the boldest move and why you were scared was Michi sent out last night an article by McKinsey where they said compassionate leadership is defined by vulnerability, empathy, and awareness. And, like talking about where you're scared, like making yourself vulnerable definitely is adding value to all the team opening up. Are there other situations, or are you vulnerable in your job? So do you let down your shields often, or is it depending on with certain people? So how do you deal with opening up? You personally?
Yeah. I think we are on the way to it. Yeah. If you think about yourself, then I always think that I'm a quite reflected person, and that I can think about myself, and I can see how I am from outside. But I think if I really think about it, I'm not opening up as often as I could. And to make yourself vulnerable and to show your innerst emotions or your innerst ideas is not a very easy thing to do, at least for me or for myself. But I know that it is a very, very important step, because you as a person, everybody learns that you're touchable, that you are not sure what you decide on, but you decide on the best you can, or the best mit dem besten Gewissen, with the
best effort, I'd say.
Best effort, and that you also don't know if this hotel will run in 2 or 3 or 4 years in a good way, or if this startup is really successful and the invested money is really successful. You don't know it before. But if you open up that and show the people that you are not sure about your decisions, as of course you're sure with the emotion and you're enthusiastic to the decision, but you don't know if it will come out a good result on the decision. And I know a lot of decisions from myself which were not good decisions, and I'm opening up to where these decisions, I'm opening up to, of course, to my colleague, for example. We are together, we are two of us, and this is very important, that I have a colleague to whom I can open up, and to whom I can say, oh, okay, we really lost on that decision several thousand euros or several 100,000 euros even. and I know it, and I'm not happy about it, but it happened, and I took the decision in a really good, prepared situation, in a really good mood, and a really good, enthusiastic way. But enthusiasm is not always the best thing to take decisions, on the other hand. So sometimes you're so enthusiastic to go one way, and then one year later, the critical persons who at the first hand said it's not a good idea, they were right then, and you have to confess, okay, I should have listened once more to your concerns on that decision. And to open up these things, I think you can do it in a personal way, in a one-on-one situation, but to open up this personal emotions on that, or this personal feeling on it, to a crowd of people is not that easy. Yeah? But you have to do it, and you have to work on it.
Oh, I think that's quite impressive if you dare to do these things, and I think it's a learning journey for all of us, and hopefully the benefits of opening up will pay back sooner or later. Is there anything else about, like a feedback of your colleagues was that you're really good at managing complexity? And yeah, is there a trick
Who did
of
you
yours?
ask?
My secret, but that was really like, it came up. And managing complexity, stay on top of things, being flexible and being able to take in new things and not getting emotional, but coming to a decision. This was the feedback, more or less. I tried to translate it now on the go, on the fly. Is there anything where you think, hey, that's my strength, this I could share for others, this could help them to manage complexity?
I think there is. We had a discussion in our management team some weeks ago, and one person was saying the whole world is going to be every day more complex, and the complexity is increasing every day. And to take decisions now is much more complicated than 10 years ago. I really don't have that feeling. I said, no, that's not my opinion on it. Of course, the world is complex, but it was complex before, and it will be complex in future. The difference is that we do have more information. The difference to 10 years ago, we do have more information about the world, and we do have more fake information, or more information which is not relevant for decisions. And I think that having that in mind, that it's just more information, and that you have to find out on which information you rely, and in which information you really need for taking a decision, and not every concern which is in the world, because you would never take a decision in a very complex world if you really would take serious every information you're having. Then it will lead you to taking no decision, because of course there are so many things which are there preventing decisions. So I think the tip I can give, so find out the really useful information for taking a decision, and then you have to do it. You have to take the decision. And for example, again, this startup with Claudia and her team. The first idea was to make a Ausschreibung,
I don't know, pitch, something like
that.
A tender to everybody, and to find the right people for doing this startup. And I really do remember some meetings with you, Claudia, and with some of your colleagues. And then we said, okay, we can now doing a pitch or doing a tender, and finding out other people and compare it to each other if these are the right people, or we take the decision now because we trust those people. And we took the decision. You can say it was not right. We never know, or we will know possibly in some years.
Hopefully it was right.
Hopefully it was right. Yeah.
We're working on it.
Yeah, I know. But I, of course, I didn't know if it was the right decision, and until now I don't know if it really was the right decision, because we cannot see the results right now. I'm very happy with the product now, but we will see it 1 year, 2 years if it really was a good decision to work together in that way. But but we would have lost one more year, and I'm really not sure if we would have taken a better decision if we would have made a tender or would have tried to find out other people. So that's one example. Yeah, did we have enough information? Some would say no. I say we had the most important information. We trust those people. We know their record. We know what we want to do. We understood that they understood us. So I think we had enough information to take the decision.
Cool. So that was quite interesting inputs from my questions. And I see already the first questions in the chat. Alice, can you talk and ask your question yourself, or should I read it for you?
Hi, and can you hear me? I'm in a poor connection, so sorry, I'm not turning my camera on for now. So thank you for this, and so I might have missed some of what you said, but what you described in terms of decision making is very much what the sort of holocratic teal organization principle is about, right? And I mean, I was part of an organization a few years ago.
Oops, now you lost Alice. I can try to read the rest of the type. She asks how you came to the decision to go for the sociocratic.
Implemented this, and it took quite a few years, a bit more.
Alice, we didn't hear you that much, so can you just put the question once more? The middle part we just lost, so just the question.
Okay.
Basically, aspects did not work, huh? Is it?
Okay.
Yeah, so I will do that. Sorry.
Okay, so I'll ask a question. Sorry, no, I turned her down. So the question is, who introduced you to the idea? To what extent did you follow the principle that was introduced to you? And most interestingly, what did not work for you? I think that was the question.
First of all, it was the management team itself who said we are not satisfied on how our decision taking is going. So 3 years ago, they said, we are not satisfied with you, Alex, on how you're doing our meetings. So it was not an easy way for them to say to me, and it was also not easy for me to hear, okay, I thought I was a good moderator, and I thought I was a good facilitator, and I would do these meetings in a very funny and very good way to take the decisions. And they said, no, it's not true. You're not doing it in a good way. So it was hard to digest this situation. And then we had a whole, I think, 2 days together with external counselor who introduced to us the ideas of sociocracy and holocracy. And we tried to find out our own way on how to work together. It was at the first hand, it was only in our management team. And we were, I think it took half a year to learn these methods and to learn how we would like to take decisions in our meetings and in our situation. And I said it before, the most important part is to try out new things and not to stay the same all the time, because then, therefore it's very important to measure on how satisfied are the management team after the meetings. Was it the right topics? Were it the right topics, or was it how was the moderation and the facilitation? And we also took the decision that the facilitation is not being done by us as the managing directors, but by the management team itself. So and that it's being done by 2 persons and not only 1 person, and many other things. And then,
so just asking, you're doing the facilitation every time yourself in the team, or are there some things?
Yes, we are doing, yes, and once a year we invite again the counselor, the person from outside, to look at us and to help us to reflect on how our moderation decision taking is doing. So once a year we are reflecting 1 day on how we work together. So there is I think one good question: which aspects did not work for you? I think we are on the way to a sociocratic and holocracy structure. We are not there. We tried what we tried out. We also tried out inside the organization. We have a lot of teams, a lot of decision-taking teams, a lot of teams in the institutions, in the homes for homeless people, and so on. And they also learn on how this decision-taking methods are working for them. But what we do not have is we didn't change our structure as a whole, and we have now an organizational development. How do you say, strategy, which is trying to describe on how we are going to work together in the next years as a whole organization. But we are still not there. We're just on our way to trying out. So we are not as far as Buurtzorg, for example, in the Netherlands, which is an organization which was founded as a sociocratic organization. So what did not work is hard to say, because when something don't work, when something is not working, then we are trying out the next thing. So for example, what was not working is that we took decisions without having in mind what the cost of the decision is. So then we said, okay, we can't take decision without having in mind what the cost of it. And so we tried to be better, and now in every decision we are taking, we know what the financial consequences of these decisions are, and every decision has a financial consequence. So that is one example where we did not do it before, and now we are doing it. So that, yeah.
So your call is to try, experiment what works for you, and learn on your mistakes. So this is also like opening up the round now to everyone. I saw a few people nodding, smiling. Thanks for your openness, also for sharing your failures and your difficulties and hardships. So this was really great. Any questions from the audience? Who wants to go first? I see Michi nodding all the time, because probably the change and complexity stuff triggered something. Somebody else. So who wants to go first? Oh, Sami, go for it.
Thanks for the talk. Really interesting topic. I text my question on the chat box as well. How reliable is the opinion of an ordinary person compared to an expert? You know, when you took these decision-taking rounds, you might have lots of opinions on the table, but what will I do about the evaluation of these opinions? We would like to be democratic some way, but let's say the expert says the other way around, but we have a few more votes for the ordinary person or a ordinary opinion. How do we make the evaluation? Because it has lots of consequences, and you might taking a lot of risks.
It's a very, very good question. In our management team, we are trying to be on the level on strategic decisions. And we think that the people in the team are the strategic persons, and so the experts of the company or of the organizations for strategic themes. We are not experts on COVID-19, for example. So decisions on COVID-19, we don't take those decisions. We give them to experts, which are again in a team of experts on COVID-19. So what we try, it's not always perfect to say, but what we try is to put the decisions in those teams or to those experts who are really expert for it. And one task of Klaus and myself, so the other managing director and myself, is to decide whether a topic or a problem is a problem or topic for the management team, or it is a problem or topic for us as a managing directors, because we are the only experts on that. For example, the budget for the whole organization, we don't discuss in the management team, but we decide the two of us, only the two of us. Yeah. Other organizations are doing that in another way, but we decided that we are the experts for doing the budget for the whole organization. And we also decided that the COVID-19, we have a crisis management team, that it's not part of the management team. So I think that's the answer on the question, is that we have a Flaschenhals, that we have a
bottleneck.
A bottleneck to decide what team or which person is responsible for taking a decision, and we put in that this topic or theme to that expert or to that team. But of course, sometimes you are having still a situation where some have an opinion and some are really experts. But if you're responsible for the whole decision, then you also know that you're not an expert, and you're saying, okay, I'm not the expert for that decision in such a meeting. And it happens. So as they say, so my colleagues, they say, okay, for this decision, I really don't know if a vaccination for against influenza, on how to do it best. So I wouldn't take that decision because I really don't know.
It's quite interesting. I have to reflect on that because it triggers something with me. We also have experience with building up holocratic organizations. Our first startup team in Berlin, we organized holocratic, and actually we failed terribly because we had a 20 years background in traditional management, and it was actually us, like the founders, going in there, not being trained in taking decisions in a way that we, let go, more or less. So we were not trained in how to take decisions democratically. And it worked quite well as long as everything was fine. But as soon as the boat started rocking, we fell back into our old way of thinking and managing. So I'm the one in the know, I'm the one saying and telling to you what to do. And this was like the death of this kind of organization form for us. How is it with you? Because I'm coming from a male-dominated, technocratic, decision-making, management organization, and nobody would have admitted, I don't know, I cannot, answer this question. The normal thing would do, I would answer it.
It really has changed in our team as well, because of course everybody thinks or has an opinion on everything in the world, even on football. But also in football there are many experts, I think. In Austria there are 9 million experts on football playing. But as far as we knew, or we know now, that everybody is responsible for the decision, and that they are responsible, the whole management team is responsible if the decision is taken in that way, that they have to put it in the whole organization in that way. And that changes something first. And the second, and I think even more important thing, is that we had training. We had training on that, and that's one thing of opening up. You mentioned it before, opening up to say, I don't know, or I'm not I have an opinion, but I'm not the expert on that, is opening up to say, okay, please, experts, I'm okay what you are saying. And that's, I think, in a male-dominated company world, it's sometimes hard, and we are also male-dominated on the heads. The 2 managing directors are white male, over 40 years old, yeah, and we try to to give it up. The whole management team is already, I think, 4 or 5 women are in the team, but still the managing directors are male.
So Anna, you want to go?
Sure. So I was wondering, from the original team setup, you had this transition phase, and were there any team members where you thought, or they thought, that this kind of working style did not work for them? Or in other words, do you think everyone can learn a holocratic work style, or is it for some people who just say, well, nice, I tried that, not for me?
Good question, Anna.
Good question. I don't know. I cannot give you an answer on that. I can tell you the experience of my team, because the idea of doing the meetings in another way and take the decisions in another way was not my idea. It was out of the team. So, and then we just started. Beforehand, I never had the question in mind if everybody is or can or is able to use that method, but we developed it together. And I think possibly many of them of the team thought that I was not able to do it. Yeah, so I think it's a very hard question to say if you from outside, if people are able to do it or not. I have not really an answer on it.
But nobody gave up. They're still there, or?
They are still, everybody's here, yeah. We are doing that the last 3 years, and everybody of our team is there, yeah.
Okay.
But Claudia, you said you failed in your Berlin experience because you then took the decisions in the way you used to do it before. So how did that work out for you?
No, for me, it's I'm still a true believer in, maybe not in the model of holacracy because it's too rigid. I think somebody put it in the chat there, but in decision making on eye level and with a structured method. I'm still a fan of that, but I know if I ever go in and I'm training on that already, but if I ever go into setting up an organization again this way, or if I scale an organization, I will work a lot on myself. So it's not on the team that much, it's also on myself to let go, to like, as Alex's leadership skills were enabling people, like allowing people to do what they are best at. I think that requires quite a lot of training. It's a different kind of leadership. I'm in this new business for 5 years, so I think now I can do it, but I have been 20 years in another kind of, like working in a top-down way of decision-making, more or less. And this is quite a change, and you need to train the new way in order to be able to work with it. Otherwise, you're always in danger, or I'm still now in danger to fall back into this, I've learned this and it always worked stuff, especially if you were successful in the old way. And some of us were very successful in the old way.
I just can support what you're saying, Claudia, because I'm also coming from that kind of culture. And of course, everybody of our management team is endangered in falling back in this old way on taking decisions. And I think in the chat there is one more question or one more comment, which is saying you need a failure culture that allows to recover fast. One of the things we are doing is that our decisions are they have a date and a Befristung, a due date, so maybe 6 months or 12 months, so that we have to evaluate each and every decision at least once a year, and that has to be taken serious so that you can see, okay, that was a bad decision, and to recover fast. I think that's a very, very that's still one of the hardest things to do in reality, because we have a due date, but we come to that due date and everybody is tired on evaluating and discussing again that decision. But sometimes it really happened that we said, okay, no, we don't do it that way, we go another way. And in the past we took a decision, and for the lifetime of myself, the decision was taken. It never changed again.
I think that's very true. Petra, do you want to state your comment here, because you went a bit more into detail in your reflection on what Alex said?
I'm really impressed. Thank you a lot, Alex, on showing us that it can really work if you and all your management team are behind it. And what I would be interested in, because I think the first step in order to start such a process is that you assure that you have the right people for that in your team. Because you're changing, they're complete, and that's also the reason why you might fail in other organizations, that you have to accept that you have changed now the decision process, and there is no way going back to that old style, and that you have to accept that risk you were willing to go. And I was wondering whether you have ever considered exchanging some people in your management team because of thinking, okay, they might not be the right people to go with that style, that they let their teams do it that way, that they accept the leadership style, that it's not them anymore taking the decisions, that it's, and also the failure culture.
The answer is no. But I think that I'm in a very good situation, as the decision came out of the team to take decisions like that. And it not always happens that way. I think it's inside Caritas we have the culture. We had a culture before on taking democratic decisions sometimes, which is not always good. Sami said it before. If you just say every decision taken in a democratic way, it's a bad way on leading a company or an organization. I'm really sure about that. So what my fear was that every decision is going to be taken inside the management team. That was my biggest fear. Not that we don't have the right people there, but that we come up with a solution that every decision is inside the management team, and I cannot say anything against it anymore. But I have two possibilities. One, to decide that the topic is not the topic for the management team. And second, I always can say, no, I'm not for that decision. But then I have the responsibility to bring in a new idea on how to take a decision.
There was something interesting you said. Sorry, who wanted? Did anybody want to ask a question or jump in on that? Okay, so for me, there was something interesting, and I wonder what's your take on that. You said you were a democratic organization before. For us, it was very hard because we came to change to a sociocratic concept because we came from a top-down decision-making philosophy, more or less. So do you think it's easier for an organization that has a different culture to move to that, so that comes more from the democratic side to move to this kind of decision-making, or it's easier to go to the structured process from a top-down organization?
So first, when I said it was a democratic culture, so we had already in our teams, in our homeless homes, in our nursing homes, we already had a culture that leading is not only a thing for the leading person, but for the whole team. But on the other hand, we have a lot of hierarchy still, because we are also a church organization, so we still have a lot of hierarchic steps in our organization. So there is both of it is there. But I think it's right, Claudia, to say that it's easier to change. I'm not sure about it, but it probably is easier if there is already a idea that the opinion and they already have decisions in your organization which were being taken in a democratic way. But it was not always useful to have those decisions in a democratic way, to say I'm for it, I'm against it, and 3 are for and 2 are against. That's not the best way to take decisions in an organization. But I think it's probably easier to change that into a sociocratic way of taking decisions. Yeah.
Petra, your comment, because you wrote something in the chat.
Yeah. I was wondering, because you just said you can always say no, but then you have to come up with a new idea. It sounds a bit like a burden if it's quite a new or big idea, let's say, that you then have to come up with a new idea in addition to your daily work you anyway do. I was wondering, did that increase somehow the yay sayers? So did you see that people are now waving through all decisions because they don't want to be responsible for bringing up a new idea, because that takes time? Or are all ideas so well prepared in your once a month, 1 day meeting that there are no controversial decision anymore? So I was wondering on that, from naysayer to yay sayer.
Yes, that's a really you're totally right in your first comment. Of course, there is the danger on having too much yay sayers and yes decisions, and we are having that. So we're having in our management team, sometimes I feel, okay, everybody's saying yes because they don't want the burden on bringing up a new idea and so on, as you have said. But we, as we reflect on our meetings I think even after every team and once a year in a general way, we found out that it goes that way, and the reason for using also other methods of decision taking, like the resistance method, for example. So we reflect on that, but the danger is there.
Sorry, it was quite interesting. It's ending in 5 minutes, so we have time for one last question if somebody wants to jump in, because Alex has to leave at 10 sharp. Any feedback, a comment, question maybe to Alex? Alexis, your turn. Final question to you. Alexis, you need to unmute yourself before talking.
Yes, I got problem with my bandwidth here. The failure culture is kind of tricky. By tricky, it means very complex. Because for profit organizations, normally they are focused on the profit, right? And non-profit organizations are forced or have a high pressure to operate as a profit organization. How do you balance that? Because you are working a non-profit organization at the same time you are managing a hotel that need to provide profit, right? So how you balance these two worlds?
Hard question again. I don't know if I have a really good answer on that. I think there is not so much difference between an organization who is going for profits and who is trying to cover their costs. Because as a non-profit organization, you also have to cover your costs. And even so, you also have to be, and I am responsible to even make a small profit every year, as we have to have reserves for situations like COVID-19, for example. So I think the pressure on covering costs, or the pressure on doing profits, is not so much of a difference as you would think. So yeah, maybe that's the first answer. I also what we have an advantage to profit organizations. We are motivated by our doing much more in a very easy way as profit organizations are. So that means that people are very engaged on the one hand, but if you tell them they made a mistake, they are really personally, emotional on it, because they are really so much engaged to do the right things. So it's even, I think, sometimes harder to have a tolerance on failure than in profit organization, which is just a business. But I think that's just an opinion and not an expert.
Thank you very much, Sami. One very short one.
It's not a question, actually. I would like to follow up. The profit making and the cost covering is not the same thing at all. When do they make profits? They make millions. But when you go for your cost, you just want to have the balance. That's a completely different approach. So I don't think these two organizations are in a way equal.
I think it depends a lot on the point of view. So
I think that's a new discussion, but a very interesting one.
So, but I have to be the timekeeper here and the spoiler of everything. Thanks a lot for the final comment, Sami. Thanks all of you. I totally enjoyed the lively discussion, and thanks a lot, Alex, for taking the time, for opening up and really sharing some interesting learnings. I recommend to all of you, copy some of the things in the chat. I think we saw Frederic Laloude's and articles on sociocratic. So if you're on leadership, I think getting familiar with these new ways of thinking definitely helps. So thank you. And looking forward to the next session. I think the next session, who takes over, Petra or Alexandra?
Next session is on December 18. That will be the last session for this year, with Simone Oremovic on leadership and change. She's HR director of a large group, international group based in Austria, RHI Magnesita. and we will discuss leadership and change with her.